So we're talking about frequency tables, and we're going to be talking about something called conditional probability. We sort of talked about it when we talked about independent and dependent, but we're going to talk about it again today. So on these problems, you will start with the table, and you're going to use that table to answer some questions. Now, a lot of times, the table that you'll be given, it will just be like these first 4 blocks. You won't have places to put the totals. However, you do need to find the totals in most of these problems in order to answer the questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add across to get each of the totals and add down to get each of the totals. 64 plus 48 is 112. 18 plus 32 is 50. 64 plus 18 is 82. 48 plus 32 is 80. And you add across and add down, and this number should be the same as across and down altogether, and it is. And that's the grand total. That's the total number of people in the whole entire situation. So we're looking at people that took a driving test, and we're looking at people that prepared and people that did not. And this means they took the class, this means they didn't take the class, this means they passed, and they failed. So, first of all, it says probability a student passed. Alright, so probability a student passed. The total number of people that passed would be at the end, that's 112. And the total number of people that took the driving test is 162, so it would be 112 over 162. I'm not going to reduce these, I'm going to leave it just like it is. But you can reduce it, no problem. Next, it says a probability a student didn't take the class. So here's no class. The total number of people that didn't take the class would be 80 over the total, which is 162. Now, these two were kind of simple. You just look at the totals and divide by the total. But on the next ones, what you have to do is you have to look at only one column or only one row. Okay? So this says conditional probability is the probability of A given B. I'm going to give you the algebra answer, but then I'm going to show you really don't have to use that algebra answer. This is the equation that you would use to solve this, but I'm going to show you using the table that you do not have to do it this way. So number 1 says a probability a student passed given that they didn't take the class. Alright, so you start with the given part and you only look at that part, given that they didn't take the class. So didn't take the class is this right here. That means I don't look at anything else, I only look at didn't take the class. The total number of people there are 80. Okay, so 80 is going to go on the bottom. The rest of the question said a probability the student passed. So looking at only that column, the passing total is 48. So 48 will go on top. 80 is the total, so 48 over 80. The given part means that you only look at that row and column, and then you find the total, which would be on the end of that row and column, and then the answer on the top would be based on what you have for a student passed. Okay, a probability that a student failed given that they took the class. So I'm only going to look at taking the class, and then I'm going to look at failed. So taking the class is here, so I'm only looking at that. It said the probability that they failed. So 18 would be on top. Total is 82. So 18 over 82. Probability a student didn't take the class given that they failed. So we're going to look at the failed part, and then we're going to look at didn't take the class. Alright, failed means I'm only looking at the rows. So sometimes it's a row. Alright, 50 was going on the bottom. And the question said didn't take the class. So didn't take the class would be here. So 32 over our total, which is 50. So 32 over 50. Okay, let's look at another example. And maybe I can get all of these on the same page. So here we're talking about male and females that participated in clubs. Remember, the first thing you need to do is figure out your totals. So right now I'm just adding these together. And I'm still adding down on the bottom. And hopefully when I add that and add that, I get the same thing. And I do, and it's 8/18. Okay. Probability that it's a member of a club, given that he's male. So that means only look at males. So the total's 398. I'm only looking at that one row there. Probability it's a member of a club. So in that row, the club is 156, so this would be 156. Okay? Not a member of a club, given that she's female. Remember, always start with the given. So that means I'm looking at this row here. So 420 is on the bottom. Not a member of a club. So again, we're looking at the females. Not a club, 108. 108 goes on the top. Male, given that he's not a member of a club. Given that he's not a member of a club. So not a member of a club is here. So 350 will go on the bottom. Male, looking at only on that column, would be 242. And so you get that. Okay. I've got a couple more examples to show you related to this. I'm sorry the numbers are off, but that's okay. We've got a class here, and they're taking foreign language and science. So first thing we need to do is figure out the totals. Remember, you won't always have places to put those totals, but you should always put the totals there anyway. And then add across and add down, you should get the same thing. They tell me that there's 30 students, so that makes sense that 30 should go there. So A says the probability that a randomly chosen student studies chemistry. So this has nothing to do with a given that, so I'm only talking about studying chemistry, so I only look at chemistry and then the total, so it would be 8/30. Okay, probability that a randomly chosen student studies chemistry, given that he studies French. That means I'm only looking at French, so I'm only looking at that row. 14 must go on the bottom because that's the total. And then it says studies chemistry, so again I'm only looking at that row. Chemistry is 7, so 7/14. One more example. Notice this one is one that did not give me those totals, so I'm going to go ahead and find them. 56 plus 144 is 200. This is 170. Okay, and then I can add across. And this is 370. Okay, so probability that Lori has a band class, given that she's a freshman. That means I'm only looking at freshmen. That means 200's on the bottom because that's the total freshmen. And then probability she has band, looking at that row, band is 56, so 56 goes on the top.